Good evening, Florida, and welcome to Coastal Conservative News, where truth has a backbone and freedom still has a home.
We're bringing you the bold stories and the real headlines and the voices that matter most, right here from the heart of the free state of Florida, from Tallahassee to the Sun Coast.
We're tracking the political shifts, community victories, and constitutional battles shaping the future of our state and our great nation.
So buckle up, it's time to get informed, get fired up, and get involved.
This is CCN, Coastal Conservative News.
This week in Florida, drought conditions escalated into formal water shortages, declarations, across multiple districts. The Attorney General launched a public integrity unit targeting misuse of taxpayer dollars, and state leaders continued advancing proposals that would hold elected officials accountable for refusing cooperation with immigration enforcement. These are not disconnected headlines. Yes. They're examples of how governance moves from advancement to enforcement to impact.
Absolutely. Tonight, we are breaking down what happened, how it works structurally, and why it matters to you at the kitchen table. This is Coastal Conservative News. Attorney General James Uthmeier announced convictions this week in a multi-million-dollar organized retail theft operation connected to St. Petersburg. He also filed charges against 6 individuals in a cargo theft ring spanning multiple counties, including Orange, Brevard, Polk, and Osceola counties. These cases were prosecuted by the Office of Statewide Prosecution.
And here is why that matters structurally. Florida created the Office of Statewide Prosecution specifically to handle criminal enterprises that cross judicial circuits, right? Now, when crime is organized and multi-county, local state attorneys do not operate independently. The case moves to statewide jurisdiction. Organized retail theft affects inventory chains. Cargo theft affects distribution hubs. Both increase business loss exposure.
Loss exposure influences pricing strategy, insurance premiums for businesses, and operational security costs, so it affects all of us. When the state targets enterprise crime rather than isolated incidents, it is pursuing supply chain stability that helps us. Public safety enforcement is also economic enforcement.
Right, now what happens next? The sentencing phase proceeds, right? Assessed forfeiture can apply in enterprise level crime. Repeat offenders face enhanced penalties under Florida's organized theft statutes, and the objective is deterrence through disruption.
I think that's very, very key.
It's so important, and I like that they're going after the top, right?
Absolutely.
You can go to the bottom,
but mob types.
Yes, it is. It's a little wild.
I love this.
All right, now February 13 marked Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Remembrance Day across Florida. Flags were ordered at half-staff statewide, but remembrance in Florida carries policy weight.
After 2018, Florida enacted the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act, which significantly altered school safety governance. It increased funding for school resource officers and guardians. It mandated threat assessment teams. It strengthened campus security requirements and reporting protocols. That framework remains in place today.
And when we talk about culture, we are not talking about symbolism alone. We are talking about how tragedy reshaped statutory authority and school safety funding structures statewide. School safety funding is not discretionary. It is codified, and that's important.
Absolutely. Moving on to health and wellness this week, the MAHA conversation shifts from testing results to funding oversight. Healthy Florida First and related transparency initiatives must move through the appropriations process. Early House and Senate budget drafts do not currently mirror the full funding request submitted by the executive branch.
And here is the deeper context. Public health initiatives operate through the Department of Health and are funded via line item appropriations. Now, when the governor proposes a program expansion, it enters the legislative budgeting process. If the legislature funds it fully, it expands. If funding is reduced, implementation scales back. If funding is removed, it sunsets.
Public health policy is not sustained by press releases. It is sustained by recurring funding. That includes testing infrastructure, laboratory capacity, staff, data reporting systems, and regulatory oversight. Transparency initiatives require operational continuity.
Now, what happens next? House and Senate budget differences move into conference committees. Yes. Negotiations determine final funding levels. The governor retains line item veto authority, and MAHA policy this week is about fiscal structure, not just headlines. Yeah,
exactly. Okay, we're going to move on and pivot a little bit to environment and wildlife, which we care about here in the state of Florida. Florida is in a measurable drought, guys. The Southwest Florida Water Management District declared a modified Phase 2 water shortage affecting counties including Sarasota, Manatee, Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Pasco. That declaration restricts outdoor irrigation to once per week for most residential properties. Now, the Northwest Florida Water Management District issued a water shortage warning order encouraging voluntary conservation. Earlier this month, guys, Governor Ron DeSantis signed Executive Order 26-33, citing drought and wildfire conditions statewide.
Here is how this works. Water management districts operate under Chapter 373 of Florida statutes. They monitor rainfall deficits, groundwater levels, aquifer recharge rates, and stream flow. When thresholds fall below established baselines, districts activate shortage phases. Those phases are predefined. They are not political decisions made in real time. Phase 2 means groundwater levels have declined enough to warrant restrictions to prevent further drawdown.
Yeah, now let's talk wildfire. Drought dries surface vegetation and lowers soil moisture. That increases fire ignition risk and accelerates the spread throughout Florida. The Florida Forest Service tracks active fires and acreage burned. During extended drought conditions, like we've kind of come upon now, suppression costs rise and response strain increases, Allie.
Absolutely. Now, why this matters to you. First, irrigation restrictions affect landscaping costs and lawn maintenance schedules. Yep. Second, wildfire risk affects long-term insurance modeling in high-exposure areas. And third, agriculture in drought conditions faces irrigation strain, crop stress, and increased input costs. Yeah. Environmental conditions do not remain environmental. They become economic.
So true, guys. So true. Okay, let's pivot to something a little lighthearted.
Yes, sports, and less informative. But I think this is important for you to learn and know how things function and why they're structured the way they are, so you're not running around, just confused or just uninformed. So, all right, now this week in Florida sports reflects the mid-February professional pause, right? The Miami Heat had no games between February 11th and today.
I thought you were saying they had no game.
No games, no.
No games.
Due to the schedule break, the Orlando Magic returned to play February 19th, and the NHL Olympic break shifted attention to international competition, with Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning players participating.
Yeah, professional sports influence regional economies. Arena traffic supports hospitality, restaurants, parking, and tourism. International exposure, guys, enhances franchise branding and league visibility. Sports are not separate from economic infrastructure, so they do matter.
Yes, and I just want to make sure that we are congratulating our U.S. women's hockey team for winning gold against Canada. Take that, Canada. It was great. It was a great game. Love to watch.
And they were very patriotic as the American flag was lifted in the arena. We had them singing and, swaying to the national anthem.
No one took a knee. It was great.
It was great. It didn't go woke. Go figure.
I loved it. All right, guys, that is your week in review. And when we come back, we're taking it local with our Suncoast community with stories, people, and events from right here along the Gulf Coast. We'll be right back with more after this.
From the heart of Marietta, Georgia, comes a tribute to the spirit of liberty. Liberty Cigars, where history meets craftsmanship. Each cigar tells a story. The Founders Collection honors the visionaries who shaped a nation. The President's House Collection celebrates the leaders who steered it. And the Naval Series salutes the heroes who defended it. Handcrafted with precision, each blend mirrors the essence of its namesake. From the boldness of George Washington to the elegance of Thomas Jefferson. Indulge in a moment of reflection. Light a Liberty cigar and savor the legacy. Discover your story at libertycigars.com, because every great nation deserves a great cigar. Liberty Cigars, smoke the history. And don't forget to use promo code OPENMIC for 10% off your order.
Welcome back, everybody. Our Suncoast Community Spotlight this week focuses on long-term stability. Sarasota Memorial Healthcare System continues expanding facilities and services to accommodate sustained regional population growth.
Yeah.
The Venice campus expansion and specialty care investments increase capacity for emergency services, surgical procedures, and specialty treatment.
Yes, healthcare infrastructure is population infrastructure. As Sarasota and surrounding areas continue to grow, especially in South County, hospital capacity must scale accordingly. Expansion reduces travel for advanced care, increases disaster readiness, and strengthens regional resilience.
And healthcare systems are also major employers.
Yeah.
Expansion means construction jobs, long-term clinical positions, administrative staffing, and supplier partnerships. It diversifies the regional economy beyond tourism.
Yeah, in a week of drought declarations and enforcement announcements, it is important to recognize institutional investment. Growth requires preparation. I mean, we always say we want the infrastructure kind of before the growth, right? And the Suncoast is really preparing. You're going to see they've already broken ground on a new hospital off of Sumter Boulevard in Northport. It's going to bring a lot of jobs to the area, so we're grateful. These stories don't always trend, guys. They don't always go viral.
But they matter because they show who we are when no one is forcing us to care.
Yeah, and that's the Florida we're proud to call home, honestly.
Absolutely. All right, when we come back, we'll shift from local impact to statewide and national decision-making. Political Pulse will be right after this.
They call masculinity toxic, but the truth is, God calls it sacred. My name is Camden Bettinghouse, and I've seen how the world takes what God meant for us as men and turn it into this thing called toxic masculinity. I wrote Fearless Masculinity because my generation's been lied to. You know, we've been told to sit down, stay quiet, and apologize for being men. This world doesn't need weaker men. It needs men who are willing to stand up and become fearless. Men who protect their families, serve their communities, and live without fear. Fearless Masculinity is a roadmap to discover who God truly made you to be as a man. It's about rediscovering purpose, building courage, and stepping into who God truly calls you to be. If you're tired of being called toxic just for being a man, and you're tired of shrinking back, tired of silence, this book is for you. Are you ready to step up? If you are, go to CamdenBettinghouse.com to get more information and become a fearless man of God.
Now we move to what Tallahassee is doing. Thank you for coming back to CCN. We are so glad you're here. Now let's begin with the governor's agenda. This week, Governor Ron DeSantis unveiled a statue of President James Monroe as part of Florida's participation in the America 250 commemoration. At first glance, that may feel a bit symbolic, right? But it is. But civic commemoration is not neutral. It reflects how a state chooses to frame its historical identity. Florida is positioning itself as a state that actively participates in national historical milestones rather than passively observing them.
And I think this is important because, you know, you're going to see this trickle down even into our education system. They're going to be even more proud, I think, of our history, right, and the knowledge of it. The governor also appointed Jolene Sheave to the Osceola County School Board. So there was a vacancy there. Nice.
Good.
All right, here's why this matters, guys. Under Florida law, when a school board vacancy occurs midterm, the governor has appointment authority. School boards control district budgets, superintendent contracts, curriculum oversight, and local policy enforcement. So while education debates often focus on Tallahassee, local governance is where policy becomes operational. Appointments shape district-level implementation, so we're excited to see her take her seat.
And executive authority in Florida extends beyond signing bills. It includes appointments, budget proposals, emergency orders, and interagency coordination. Understanding that scope clarifies how influence flows from the governor's office into local institutions.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to our wonderful rock star Attorney General. James Uthmeyer announced the creation of a public integrity unit within the Office of Statewide Prosecution, which we talked about earlier. This, guys, is not symbolic. The Office of Statewide Prosecution has jurisdiction over multi-circuit crimes, including organized criminal enterprises, fraud, and corruption involving state funds. This new unit centralizes investigations into misuse of public funds, corruption tied to legislative appropriations, and abuse of state financial programs. Tell me they're not looking out for the average person's tax dollars.
Right. I like that this is a partnership between Florida's Financial Oversight Accountability Arm, right? FAFO. They are coordinating with the Attorney General's office to hold those people accountable that are misusing our tax dollars, which is great. Guys, let's talk mechanism, though. When public funds are misused, cases often involve layered transactions, shell entities, or misallocated appropriations. A specialized unit allows prosecutors to focus on forensic accounting, subpoena coordination, and financial tracing. It reduces fragmentation across jurisdictions, too.
I'd almost like to see it come to a school board near you, but
I hear that they are working on it.
Ooh, I'm excited.
They are working on it.
And here's why it matters, Floridians, because corruption inflates budgets. Fraud depletes resources. Misused appropriations increase long-term fiscal strain. If public integrity enforcement increases, deterrence increases. And that protects both taxpayer dollars and institutional trust.
Yes, very important. Now, switching gears a little bit, the Florida Senate released Senate Proposed Bill 2500, formally titled the General Appropriations Act for fiscal year 2026 through 2027. This is the primary budget bill. Guys, this is it. Function of the legislature. It outlines funding allocations for education, healthcare, transportation, environmental management, public safety, and state operations. Alongside it, the Senate released Senate Bill 2502, the implementing bill for the 2026-2027 General Appropriations Act.
Yeah, here is the structural difference. The General Appropriations Act allocates funding amounts. The implementing bill modifies statutes necessary to actually execute the budget. For example, Senate Bill 2502 includes provisions affecting education incentives, administrative authority, and funding formulas. One provision addresses the rural and urban high crime area supplemental allocation. Another impacts educator recruitment incentives in rural districts. These are not symbolic line items, they alter distribution formulas.
Now to process. The House will release its own General Appropriations Act proposal, and differences between House and Senate versions move into conference committees. Conferees negotiate line items. Final language returns to both chambers for approval. The governor then has line item veto authority under Article 3, Section 8 of the Florida Constitution. That veto power allows removal of specific appropriations without vetoing the entire bill.
This is amazing because this is what stops Florida from executing bloat within our budget. So it's great. Why this matters at the kitchen table, guys. Budget structure determines whether programs expand, contract, or they're gone for good. Education funding formulas affect district staffing. Healthcare allocations influence hospital reimbursements. Environmental funding affects water management districts. We just told you about the drought that we're in. And budget is policy in numeric form, really. Mm-hmm. All right, guys, on to immigration and how it pertains here.
The state leaders, including Chief Financial Officer Blaise Ingoglia, continued discussing proposed legislation that would strengthen enforcement mechanisms against elected officials and members of the judiciary who refuse cooperation with immigration enforcement. Yeah. Florida already prohibits sanctuary policies under state law. We covered this. Yeah. The proposal under discussion would expand accountability provisions, though, which is important.
It's important. So let's clarify authority. Counties and municipalities are political subdivisions of the state. Under Florida's constitution structure, the legislature has authority to regulate the conduct of local governments. That's going to, some people are falling out of their chairs right now.
They are. They're going to be so mad about that.
However, judicial independence is separately protected under Article 5 of the Florida Constitution. Any legislation affecting judicial conduct would have to align with constitutional separation of powers and existing disciplinary mechanisms overseen by the Judicial Qualifications Commission.
If such legislation is formally filed, it would receive a bill number and move through committee review. Committees examine constitutional compliance, statutory authority, and enforcement mechanisms. Until filed and passed, it remains a proposal. Yes. Why this matters to you. This is a structural debate about the limits of local discretion versus state supremacy in immigration cooperation. Understanding that balance prevents oversimplification.
I love that. Always learning something new here.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on a little bit to talk about the structure and government layers that we have here in the state of Florida. Education policy this week is shaped primarily by budget structure, and this is going to be big talk at your local school board. Within SB 2502, the implementing bill for the General Appropriations Act, language modifies funding execution for various education programs. That includes adjustments to incentive programs for teachers in rural or high-need districts. These incentives aim to stabilize staffing in regions that historically struggle with recruitment, Allie.
Right. So Education Authority operates in layers. The legislative allocates funding through the Florida Education Finance Program. The Department of Education administers rulemaking authority, and local school boards manage hiring, contracts, and policy enforcement. When funding formulas shift, districts must adjust staffing plans and program offerings.
Yeah, education debates often focus on curriculum headlines, but funding formulas determine capacity. Without funding, policy remains a theory. Understanding that connection strengthens civic literacy, and it's very, very important.
And there was a school board meeting here in Sarasota. Do you want to give us a little blurb about that?
So, it was interesting at the school board meeting. We largely have had a lot of organized protest by non-government organizations, especially with Tom Edwards' spewing of his anti-ICE rhetoric. That brought out a lot of organizations to highly fund student walkouts here in Sarasota County. We did not see that at our most recent school board meeting. People played kind of nice by the rules. We are talking about the fact that we are having sort of a budget crisis that's impending here in Sarasota County. I think we're going to see it throughout the state. And it's going to cause our school board members and those who are running for office, I think, to have to really address the elephant in the room. Why are we losing students in our typical public school arena? We're going to have the question answered, and we're going to have to be really, really, I think, intuitive moving forward as we address public education. It's going to be great.
I think nationally that conversation continues because there are a lot of students and schools nationwide that are finding that they have lower enrollments, and possibly it's due to how the National Education Association and teachers unions, the FEA here in Florida, are essentially lobbying arms and activist arms of the DNC. Most of their funding goes to the DNC, and they are not focused on education outcomes or achievements of students, and they're encouraging these student walkouts. And you guys want to make sure you keep it here, locked on CCN. We have a fantastic interview with Corey DeAngelis, who goes into depth about this, and we will make sure that interview is out to you guys shortly.
Yes, and guys, we here at Coastal Conservative News are the only place locally, especially, that are having this conversation on who is guiding these protests and these walkouts. What role is the teachers union playing, if any? Who is actually looking out for you and the students and the teachers in the classroom? You're going to want to catch us with our special edition of CCN, Monday night, 7:30, right here. So make sure you catch it.
All right, now moving on to our financial officer, Blaise Ingoglia. He has announced findings of over $10 million in what he characterized as excessive spending in the city of Fort Pierce budget. Wow. He framed the issue in the context of potential property tax relief. He also announced additional arrests in a scheme involving approximately $1.7 million in fraudulent claims against the state, and arrests tied to fraudulent insurance policy sales in Miami-Dade County.
Yeah, always looking out. The CFO's office oversees the Department of Financial Services. That includes insurance regulation, fraud investigation, and financial oversight responsibilities. Fraud increases systemic cost. Fraud investigations protect policyholders and stabilize insurance markets, and God knows we need that here in Florida. Municipal budget scrutiny intersects with local tax burden discussions, Allie.
And accountability is not rhetorical. It is investigative authority, prosecutorial coordination, and fiscal transparency. And when those functions operate effectively, they reduce long-term cost pressure on Floridians, which is what we need, right?
Guys, this week's Political Pulse is not about dramatic headlines. It's about authority. Executive authority, legislative authority, prosecutorial authority, budget authority, Allie.
When you understand how these authorities operate, you are not reacting to politics. You are elevating governance. Yeah. And that is the difference between noise and knowledge. And you'll only see that on CCN.
Only see it here on CCN.
All right, you guys. Well, that is your Political Pulse for this week.
When we come back, Camden Bettinghouse brings us Cam in the Moment. You're not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
We are here to get an IV.
An IV. I heard you have an IV room?
Yeah, absolutely. You just head right back this way.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Knock, knock. Hello. Hi, I'm Michelle.
I'm Sarah.
Sarah, this
Hi,
is
Allie. Nice to see you.
How can I help you?
We're stressed. We're
Yeah.
moms. We've got multitasking going on. I feel like I fall victim to like a brain fog a little bit. I don't know if that's my age or whatnot.
Need a little bit of clarity, a little bit of energy.
Yep.
Is
Right?
there of an IV that you would recommend for that? Thank you.
We call this the brainstorm.
The brainstorm.
The brainstorm.
Come visit We the People Health and Wellness Center.
Where medical freedom exists.
Welcome to Cam in the Moment on Coastal Conservative News. I'm Cam, and here are your week's biggest moments coming up. All right, guys, welcome back to your favorite segment here on Coastal Conservative News, Cam in the Moment. We got an interesting few stories today to talk about. One that actually caught my eye, and it takes us to Tallahassee a little bit, which usually I try to keep it a little more local, but this is something you want to hear about. 22 Florida amendments fail to get on the 2026 ballot amidst a bunch of signature fraud. And we want to keep our elections secure and safe. And so if you're interested in that kind of thing and you want to make sure we have good elections going forward, this story is really important because there's a lot of fraud going on with these petitions that people they get and they try to sign to get an amendment on the ballot. You actually need a certain number to bring one on. If you remember 2024, that election, we had a few different amendments on the Florida ballot. But this time, all 22 that were proposed failed to get on. Smart and Safe Florida, who attempted to put on the recreational marijuana amendment on the ballot, just one election after it failed in 2024, has failed to reach the required number of petitions. And they actually needed 880,000 and got 780,000, near there. So they got pretty close, but actually they said that they submitted 1.4 million, many of which were verified as false signatures. So that's where this investigation is going on right now with the Florida Attorney General. He's investigating this mass signature fraud. Listen here.
We're looking at a lot of fraudulent signatures. I know that, hundreds of thousands, were being verified as false signatures. People were calling in saying, that's not my signature, I didn't submit it. I think this highlights the danger of these petition gathering processes, things going on the ballot where, you have fraud in the election system.
Yeah, that's where the investigation is going on right now. I'm glad that they're looking into this because we want to make sure that each and every petition is real. You don't want an amendment going on that people didn't actually vote for and didn't want to get on there. Some of the other failed amendments include, like I said, recreational marijuana, abortion, again, they're trying to bring that back and they failed, and then prayer in schools as well. So there's actually 22. You can look it up yourself and get all of those, but those are just some of the ones that failed. The state actually claims that they found a major escalation of fraud involving roughly 50 circulators who submitted over 21,000 petitions with significant concerns, they call it, which could be forged signatures, mismatched names, and all sorts of problems that could come up with petitions. But a lot of the fraud goes on with certain people that go out and maybe they're hired to do this, or maybe they're just trying to get something on and they go and forge a bunch of signatures, which is never good. But at least 9 have been arrested, including a Titusville woman who is charged with 12 counts of identity theft for allegedly using petition data to create those fraudulent voter registrations. So it's some real stuff going on. And the opposition is actually blaming House Bill 1205 because there's a new bill that's going on that requires anyone collecting more than 25 signatures to be registered by the state, and it insists that all gatherers be Florida residents. And there's a bunch of stuff that goes on with this bill. But they're using this as their kind of coping mechanism to say this is why they failed to reach, even though all this does is try to make our elections more secure. After House Bill 1205, anyone collecting, like I said, more than 25 forms has to register with the state and complete mandatory training to pick up the petitions. But also, it requires circulators to be Florida residents and U.S. citizens, preventing outside special interest groups from changing our Florida Constitution and what we have here, because we don't want a bunch of people that don't even live here making decisions on how we live. It doesn't make sense. It also requires a portion of the voter's Social Security or ID number in order to do these things, and also shortens the submission window to 10 days from 30 days so that signatures are processed in a more fresh manner, reducing the risk of some of the forms and data tampering that we've been seeing. So that's where we're at right now. And there's actually a lawsuit going on with Florida Decides Healthcare, an organization that's arguing that HB 1205 was specifically designed to make citizen-led initiatives impossible rather than just hard. So they're going a step further and saying that this is a designed play to get these amendments to fail, which I personally, I don't think that's the case, but they're going to look into this. You see the Attorney General going with the fraud, but this is going to the Supreme Court, actually. This lawsuit, it's currently underway, and a final verdict is expected later this year. So we'll keep you updated on that. I really think that the intentions of this bill were correct, because if you have this much fraud, say 1.4 million signatures, and almost half of them were fraudulent, that's a significant concern to warrant something like this, a bill like this, to make sure we avoid that in the future. Because this state, Florida, we have always been the best state at keeping things secure and pro-law enforcement, making sure we're doing the things the right way. And that's exactly what this bill is enforcing. But I want to know your thoughts on that bill as well. So let us know here on Coastal Conservative News. Comment and let us know what you think about it and whether this is good or bad for the future of these citizen-led initiatives to get on the ballot. In other news, the wholesome moment of the week, Planned Parenthood in Lakeland is officially closing March 13th, which is a celebration for many lives. As you may know, Planned Parenthood oftentimes encourages and performs in all sorts of things with abortion. And the more that these close, the more locations that are closed, the better it is for the pro-life movement and for the millions of babies that are killed each year in the womb. So that's my wholesome moment of the week. I know it might be a little controversial here, but this is great, especially in Florida, where we have a great governor who's been pretty against abortion, and just for these locations to continue closing just reinforces the law, and that's how you know it's working. They can't operate anymore because they know it's not going to work here, and that's what we want to do. We want to set the example for the country, because when Florida leads, America wins. You might have heard that slogan before. When Florida leads, America wins. And I truly believe that. That's where we're going, and that's why Florida has to continue to be completely pro-life and lead this movement as well. And that actually relates back to the ballot initiative. If you remember 2024, abortion amendment failed to reach the required number of votes to make abortion. It changed the rules with that a little bit, and I can't remember exactly what it was. But it was the language was very vague, which makes a lot of loopholes where it could get even worse and really dangerous for people. So we're super excited about that. But I want to give you one more announcement before we go today, because March 8th, the Turning Point USA Manatee County headquarters is officially launching. I, as the director, will be there giving a little bit of a speech, and we'll have all sorts of speakers at this event, ranging from students who are currently Club America leaders at their schools, and also other ones that are getting involved with this countywide chapter, and some other people as well. It's going to be a great event. There's going to be free food and everything. The flyer is here. Feel free to scan that QR code and join us if you're local for the Manatee County Turning Point USA headquarters launch. So excited about that and about everything going on here in the free state of Florida. I cannot wait, because we're going to just completely celebrate and continue on the legacy of Charlie Kirk. It's almost been 6 months since his assassination, and we are not going to stop here. We're going to continue his message and carry forward everything that he was doing. So join us for that, and I hope you enjoyed this segment of Coastal Conservative News, Cam in the Moment. Let me know if you have any questions at Camden Trey on all platforms. Reach out to me, let me know, and I'll see you guys next week on Cam in the Moment.
Thank you, Camden, for shining a light on those two very important topics.
As we close out tonight, and this is something, again, you only see here on CCN, we shift from the noise of the moment to what grounds us beyond headlines and politics. It's one of our favorite segments.
Exactly. So after the break, Kevin Gamble joins us with Faith in Focus. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more CCN after this. They've censored the truth, manipulated the narrative, and told you to sit down and shut up.
But not here, not on our mic.
Open Mic with Ali and Michelle is the podcast where free speech lives, patriotism thrives, and the truth doesn't whisper, it roars.
That's right. We break down the stories the media buries, the policies that threaten your freedom, and the culture chaos Gen Z is waking up to literally every day.
From whistleblower exposés and global conflicts to the spiritual war on masculinity, we don't just talk about it, we say what they won't.
That's right. If you're tired of soft takes, scripted spin, and really plastic politics, it's time to tune in and turn up.
Because this mic is always open.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Faith in Focus. Today we're addressing a question that's on the minds of many seekers and skeptics alike. Why Christianity out of all the other religions? In a world filled with diverse beliefs from Islam and Judaism to Hinduism, Buddhism, and beyond, what makes Christianity stand out as the one true path to God? We'll explore its unique claims, draw on insights from renowned philosopher and apologist Dr. William Lane Craig, and refute common parallels that atheists often draw between Christianity and ancient myths. By the end, I hope you'll see why Christianity isn't just another option, it's the fulfillment of God's redemptive plan. Let's start with what truly sets Christianity apart, the incarnation and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. At the core of Christianity is the astonishing claim that God himself entered human history as a man. This isn't some distant deity issuing commands from afar, like in many other religions. No, in Christianity, God becomes one of us. The Gospel of John puts it very beautifully. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Jesus wasn't just a prophet like Muhammad in Islam or Moses in Judaism. He wasn't an enlightened teacher like the Buddha, and he wasn't one of many divine avatars as in Hinduism. He was God in human form, fully divine and fully human, walking the dusty roads of first century Judea, experiencing our joys and suffering. But why does this matter? Because it shows God's profound love and commitment to humanity. In other religions, salvation often depends on human effort, following laws, achieving enlightenment, or performing rituals to appease gods. But in Christianity, God takes the initiative. He bridges the gap we could never cross on our own due to our sin. Through Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, God offers grace, unearned forgiveness, and eternal life. This isn't earned by works, it's a gift received through faith. And that brings us to the resurrection, the cornerstone that validates everything. Jesus just didn't die on the cross, he rose from the dead 3 days later, conquering sin and death. This isn't a symbolic rebirth or a spiritual metaphor, it's a historical event witnessed by hundreds as recorded in the New Testament. The Apostle Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15 that if Christ has not been raised, our faith is futile. But he was raised, and that changes everything. No other religion's founder claims victory over death in this way. Muhammad is still buried in Medina, Buddha's remains were cremated, Confucius lies in a grave. But Jesus' tomb is empty. The resurrection isn't just a miracle, it's evidence that Jesus' claim to be God were true. Now let's turn to Dr. William Lane Craig, a leading Christian philosopher whose work has helped countless people wrestle with these questions, including me. I suggest checking out some of his books because they are very, very informative. Dr. Craig argues that we can know Christianity is true, not just through personal experience like the inner witness of the Holy Spirit, but through solid rational evidence. First, he points to arguments for God's existence that align with the Christian worldview. For instance, the Kalam cosmological argument. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. And that cause is a personal creator, the God of the Bible. But why Christianity specifically? Dr. Craig emphasizes the historical evidence for Jesus' resurrection as the key differentiator. He notes that the empty tomb, the post-resurrection appearances to skeptics like James and Paul, and the transformation of the disciples from fearful fugitives to bold proclaimers can't be explained away by natural means. Hallucinations, legends, conspiracies, these alternatives fall short under scrutiny. In his debates and writings, like in Reasonable Faith, Craig shows that Christianity makes the most plausible claim to truth among world religions because it rests on verifiable events, not just philosophical ideas or moral teachings. Moreover, Dr. Craig addresses the pluralism objection, the idea that all religions can't be true because they contradict each other. Christianity claims Jesus is the only way to God, as he himself said in John 14:6, "I am the way, the truth, and life. No one comes to the Father except through me." This exclusivity clashes with inclusive views in other faiths. Islam denies Jesus' divinity and crucifixion. Judaism rejects him as the Messiah. Eastern religions often see divinity in everything, diluting the personal God of Christianity. As Craig puts it, while we respect other beliefs, logical contradictions mean not all can be right. Christianity's evidence tips the scale. Of course, skeptics and atheists often try to undermine this by drawing parallels between Christianity and other ancient religions, claiming Jesus is just a recycled myth. You've probably heard this somewhere. Jesus is like Osiris, Mithras, or Horus, dying and rising gods from pagan stories. This is a popular tactic in atheist circles, popularized by figures like Richard Dawkins or documentaries like Zeitgeist, which has been debunked over and over again. But let's refute these claims head on because they crumble under examination. First, these so-called parallels are exaggerated or fabricated. Take Osiris from Egyptian mythology. He was killed, dismembered, and reassembled by his wife Isis, then ruled the underworld. Not bodily resurrection to earthly life, Mithras from Roman mystery cults was born from a rock and slayed a bull. There's no historical death and resurrection narrative tied to him like Jesus's. Horus? He didn't die and rise. Myths say he was stung by a scorpion and healed, or battled, set eternally. These are seasonal fertility myths symbolizing cycles of nature, not actual historical events involving a real person. Scholars like Dr. Craig and historians such as N.T. Wright point out the key differences. Christianity emerged in a Jewish context that despised pagan myths and expected a single bodily resurrection at the end of time, not for one man in history. The Gospels are based on eyewitness accounts written within decades of the events, not centuries later legends. Atheist attempts to equate them rely on selective reading and ignore the vast scholarly consensus that Jesus was a historical figure who was crucified under Pontius Pilate. Facts even non-Christian sources like Tacitus and Josephus confirm. Moreover, these parallels often come from post-Christian sources where pagan stories were possibly influenced by Christianity, not vice versa. As C.S. Lewis, a former atheist turned Christian, noted, myths hint at deeper truths that Christianity fulfills in reality. That's all for today's Faith in Focus. I truly appreciate everyone that tunes into my segments, and I look forward to making more for you. God bless.
Thank you, Kevin, for reminding us why Christianity stands alone compared to other world religions. We appreciate that reflection this week.
Always. Now remember, if there's a story happening in your county, your school board, your city council, or your neighborhood, we want to hear from you.
Yes.
Visit us at coastalconservativenews.com or call our tip line 941-487-7441 to share your tips and stories.
Guys, stay informed, stay engaged, stay Florida strong.
I'm Allie Lachey.
And I'm Michelle Posey, and this is Coastal Conservative News.
Good night, and God bless the free state of Florida.